an incredible leader, not only locally but globally. He received his PhD from New College, University of Edinburgh, and is a graduate of Yale Divinity School. He is someone who has really walked the walk, talked the talk in relation to his strong vision for world peace and a better place that we can call Earth. And when I heard his stories of walking alongside and the people like Martin Luther King and Thurgood Marshall and being a witness to the struggles of the civil rights era in our country, I was really inspired by his words of wisdom. And they are captured beautifully in his latest publication, Destiny, Creating Our Global Community, Sustainable, Peaceful, Just. And to think that he started this book at the age of 98 means that anything is possible. So I hope that he inspires you. And it's my pleasure now to turn the floor over to Dr. McCann. Dr. McCann, the floor is yours. You can unmute yourself. And you may need a little help there to unmute. If Cindy or Jim, you could help him with unmuting himself.
Okay, now. Fire away.
Thank you, Carlos. Carlos has been a friend and a supporter and has gotten me to various meetings and introduced me to many of you, and I appreciate very much his support and his friendship and the work he does in Arlington County. And so I greet you this morning as an Arlington centenarian. I'm at the Jefferson, as Carlos explained, one of the best, I think, senior living facilities in Arlington. And I wrote the book between the ages of 95 and 98. It was published after I came to the Jefferson, and I worked on it all my life, actually. I didn't do something new at age 98. I simply found the wisdom that was present in the long life of work that I'd done, and I tried to distill it and put it in my book, which is Destiny, and which talks about creating our global community, sustainable, peaceful, and just. Okay, I'm going to turn now to my book, and I'm going to talk this morning on the, I hope I'm going to talk on the topic you gave me, the centenarian's vision for the future. That could be very well the title of my book, but I chose instead Destiny because I honestly believe that the destiny of civilization is going to be decided in the coming generation or generations, whether it's disaster and possibly, very possibly, the total annihilation of the human race on the one hand, or whether it's a flourishing of the human race with prosperity and opportunity and happiness far beyond anything the human race has experienced until this time. And the other thing that I'm very sure about is that we are the agents who will decide the future of humanity. In my 11 years in graduate school, there were 3 at Yale, there were 2 at Edinburgh, and then 2 at Harvard on studying to become a president for a college that would be international, cross-cultural, and global, with faculty and students from all parts of the world, learning on campus to live together in a global community. As I planned for that, I went back to postdoctoral study at Harvard and was given the opportunity to study with any professor at Harvard or in any of the 10 graduate schools in the Boston area that affiliate with Harvard and have courses back and forth from one university to the other. And in all of that, I took one exam that's the most challenging of all of them I've ever taken. It was at Yale Divinity School, and it was with Professor Liston Pope in social ethics. He gave us the question, one question for the exam. He gave it to us a month before the end of the term and before the time of the final exam. He said we could use any book to study and plan for the exam, just so it was our own work. The question for that final exam was, what is a good society? That question has haunted me and has guided my work over the many years of my life. The question is, what is a good society? So I majored in my studies in university in the field of social ethics, Christian social ethics. For the first 15 years of my professional life, I was a minister, a Southern Baptist minister, first in Marshall, Missouri, then in Clarksville, Tennessee, where I had a large church of 2,000 members, and where the state denominational leaders assigned me the job of being in charge of race relations for Tennessee Baptists. And in that role, I had the opportunity to invite Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. to speak at the Southern Baptist Convention with 10,000 people present. And I had the opportunity to meet and visit with him personally before he spoke. He told me for the first time that I'd ever heard about his son, Martin Luther Jr. He said he was born in 1928. I was born in 1924. He told me that he had just gotten a doctorate, and it was from Boston University, the Methodist Theological Seminary. And I told him I'd gotten mine from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. When we compared notes later, we found out we'd gotten our doctorates on the very same day. But at Clarksville, I was asked to speak at a civil rights meeting, bringing together the black churches and the white churches of Tennessee. I was asked to speak on behalf of the white churches of the state, And Shaw University was given the job of finding a speaker for the African American churches. And turns out the speaker they chose was Martin Luther King Jr. So on the day of the address and meeting at Vanderbilt University Divinity School, Martin Luther King and I were the primary speakers. And we both got there early and went into a room together and waited till it was time for us to speak. I had a chance to visit with him there for more than an hour. I found out that he had just started a movement, a bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. And the boycotters were meeting each night in his church. Had designed a plan for what was going to happen. They knew that 60% of the people who rode the bus in Montgomery were black. If they could boycott the bus, they would bankrupt the bus system and they would have to cave in. At least that was their hope. So they met every night at his church. The people would come in worn out from having walked to work or having thumbed a ride on the street or having people in his church go out and meet people and give them rides to their work, but nobody rode the bus. So he also had the vision of going out and explaining to the white church community of the nation and to the government just what it was they were trying to do and what their vision was to break the terrible curse of segregation in the South, in the United States. He knew that they had something important going on, and he was able to attract the television cameras. And so every night, the cameras would be there on the meeting they had, and it became a national movement, and people began to think about it and understand it on a national scale. Christian church leaders began to step forward to support the movement. And I would say at that point that government officials began to think about what it would mean and to plan for the possibility that integration might take place, or at least that there would be a movement toward integration that would be very profound and extensive. So Martin Luther Jr. explained all that to me, what their vision was while we were there waiting to speak. It's obvious that when the meeting was over, everybody remembered what Martin Luther King Jr. had to say, and I am guessing that nobody remembered what I had to say. He was a captivating, powerful preacher, and he had a plan and a vision, and he followed through on it. And of course, I would say in the Christian tradition, certainly for the first 4 centuries of the Christian faith, it was nonviolent. We will be killed. We will be beaten by the bullies. We will take whatever they offer. We will respond in love and kindness and goodwill for our oppressor, but we will not show any violence in return. Now, of course, that was a big split in the African American community, and King enlisted thousands of people to his side, established the Southern Christian Leadership Council. And in my third church in Danville, Virginia, my third year there, King came to Danville, and we had marches, and we had disaster, 260 people, either in jail or in prison, in jail or in the hospital in Danville on Tuesday morning after that bloody Monday. Well, I had, along with people in my other ministers in the downtown churches and the rabbi, we had all stood with Martin Luther King, and we had written sort of a manifesto explaining how we believed King was responding as a Christian in what he had done in Danville and across the South. He had just come from Montgomery the week before. He'd gotten out of jail in Montgomery. And so that's the point where it was. But I was, of course, asked to leave the church because mayor of the town and the leaders of the town were all members of my church, and they understood what I was doing and why, and I think they respected it and probably even believed in it, but they had no clue as to how they could be leaders in the community and not support the sacred system of segregation. Well, I'll move on from there and come back to the present time. And I'm just going to digress a moment and say that Carlos invited my wife Peggy and me to the recent Community Foundation luncheon. And at this luncheon, we heard about the goals of the Community Foundation, and the program booklet shared the goals, the initiatives of the foundation, and its core purpose. And I was profoundly impressed with just how large that vision is. The program stated at its core the role of a community foundation: create pathways that connect our community and its many individuals, groups, and organizations to the resources needed to flourish. I suggest to you that my book, Destiny, is a natural extension of your vision for a community. Your community is Arlington. The community that I'm thinking about is the global community. Because I've concluded that the world at this point is a single world community. It's a single system, and what affects one of us affects us all. And so I have the distinct belief that one thing that any group or any system or any community has to do, whether it's a corporation or a community, we have to analyze where we are, where we're falling short, what the long-term prognosis is for the community, and how we can help guide that community and participate in that community long term. And so that's what I'm thinking about when I write the book Destiny. How can, and for you, the question is, I hope and believe, is how can Arlington County become a building block, a local expression of a global vision and a global identity, because we're all together. And if we support Arlington and neglect the globe, and it goes bad and it destroys the earth, Arlington will be destroyed along with it. So with fast flying airplanes and faster flying missiles, with all of the data collected in repositories since the beginning of human history now at our fingertips, with knowing what is happening at the speed of light on our television sets and computers, we're in a new world, a single world community. We must let it sink into our souls that this is the reality. And we must learn to live together, or we will die together. That's the essence of what I started out believing. And when I started to write the book, I felt it would be helpful if I would put in 100 words the vision for the book. So the 94,000 word book that I wrote, once again, here it is, Destiny. I started out with the first page in the book, my 100-page summary, which in fact does summarize the whole book. And I titled that My Great Affirmation. This is what I believe. My great affirmation: I'm a member of the family called human. My home, Earth. The achievements of humankind throughout the ages are my heritage. Highest priority is the common global good. We together choose to make war obsolete and nuclear weapons relics as we rebalance this thin membrane of atmosphere around planet Earth. And then strategy. Only as we lift each other up rather than tear each other down can our survival and destiny be realized. How do we do this? We create a governing structure, a United States of Earth that makes Earth one, sustainable, peaceful, and just. Our destiny is bound to that of all humanity and the web of life on planet Earth. What we create together forms our bequest to the next 10,000 generations. So that's my great affirmation, and that's the message of the book. Now I'm going to ask the question, what is it about the human spirit that gives us the ability to think and plan ahead, as we have to do with every organization, and create the conditions that will let a flourishing world community come into being. And I'm going to go back to the 2008 session of Harvard graduation at Harvard Yard. The speaker that year, 2008, at the graduation ceremony was J.K. Rowling, the author of the 7-book Harry Potter series. She delivered the commencement that day to an eager sea of expectant graduates, parents, faculty, and best wishers. She told her own life story in the commencement address. She came from a poor family, and she said her parents asked her and even pleaded with her if they provided the money for her to go to college, that she take something practical, because she would have to make a living and she couldn't just follow her imagination as she was inclined to do. It was only at her graduation ceremony, she said, that her parents came to understand that she had majored in early Greek mythology. So her parents in the early days seemed to be correct, she said, because when she graduated from college, she had a child, she had a divorce, was by herself, and she had no job. And so when she looked around to assess her assets, she found that she had college friends, she had a vivid imagination, and she had self-determination. And that's all she had. She set out writing the 7 Harry Potter books. And she said, as she went along, that you don't need magic like we had in the Harry Potter books to succeed. You have everything within yourself that you need to achieve the goals that need to be acquired. He says you have within you the ability to reason. You have within you the ability to imagine. And it's this imagination that I brought to the Harry Potter series that made it successful. What you can do, she said, is to imagine a better world. Imagine the kind of world you need in order to succeed as a society, as a great society. And then from there, create the programs, the institutions, the cultural milieu, and the laws of the land that will help lead toward the realization of the dreams that you have imagined. I think that again is pretty much the essence of the whole thing. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how this is all going to end. How are we going to create this world community? And what's the government of the world community going to look like? I submit to you that we have been moving rapidly toward a single world government since first the League of Nations and then the United Nations. And then a whole series, a constant series of global treaties and agreements among the nations of the world on how we want to live and work together. And when 60% of the nations of the world sign the treaty, it becomes international law. It's what governs us. And that international law has been growing constantly. And in my book, I talk about dozens of treaties and institutions that have been formed. The World Trade Organization, for example, that has revolutionized world trade and has brought together the nations of the world, uh, meeting together every year to plan and to make legal among themselves what the nations of the world think are the shortcomings of the organization. And within a 20-year span, after creating the World Trade Organization, the wealth of the world doubled. It took how long? 100,000 years to bring us to the point of 20% of the world's people being middle class. For most of the history of the world, it was about 5%. It was the ruling class, the clerical class, and a few craftsmen that could be counted as middle class people. The rest were in poverty, and most were in absolute poverty. And then when the Industrial Revolution came up to about 20% of the people of the world in the middle class. But a study by the Brookings Institute in 2016 revealed the fact that a majority of the people of the world are now middle class. And I won't take time to go into the definition of middle class and so forth, but it came about in large part because of the World Trade Organization and the system of working together and trying consciously to bring the poor people of the world into the system. United States taking the lead in this work because we had the most wealth and having a negative trade balance so that other nations of the world, including China, could increase their wealth and bring us all together, because the purpose is not to put the United States ahead of other countries. The purpose of the world is to find the common good. And if the United States is to lead the world, then what's required? Not that we simply take it over and tell the world what we're going to do and force them to do it because we have the bomb and they don't. Not that at all. We have the right to lead the world if we become servant leaders. If we think in terms of our people and what is good for them rather than what's good for ourselves. Just like you have to do as leaders of Arlington. Be servants. Subordinate yourself to the needs of your people. And then you can justly claim to be the leaders of the world. So the process for global government is the same process that we went through in establishing the American democratic system. We started out as a confederation. Each state was independent. We came together to work in common interests and improve our quality of life because we work together. But we found out very quickly that each state protected itself and served its own interests and did so without thinking of the interests of the common good. And so the American leaders decided that there was only one solution, and that was to move from a confederate system to a federation system. And so we came to the point where the central government was the primary system, and it cared for the needs of each of the states, but it had the ability to tax, to declare war if necessary, to get things done, and no longer were its hands tied because it didn't have the power to perform the work that needed to be done. The same now is true on the world scene. The Confederate system of the United Nations is no longer, it's not sufficient. The United Nations at each of its birthdays, 25th anniversary, the 40th, the 50th, the 70th, each time they established a commission to see what would make it more effective, more efficient, to really meet the needs of the world community. And each time they came up with small changes, new program here or there, and they failed to address the central issue, which was we don't have the power to get things done. Now, we are a single world community. If we solve our problems, all the big problems, every one of the big problems facing humanity, it's going to be solved at the global level, because one cannot solve the problem by itself. It needs the entire group. And so we moved from our confederation to a United States of Earth. And that United States of Earth alone has weapons and has a system of having peacekeepers who step in if there is a war that is being threatened or gets started. The peacekeepers are the only ones with the weapons and the only ones with the authority to settle disputes. And the disputes are settled by first mediation. If that fails, voluntary arbitration. If that fails, compulsory arbitration. And if that fails, then the peacekeepers step in. But the whole system changes so that instead of thinking about war and how we're going to build a war machine that's better than that of any other country, we are thinking about how we can build a just and peaceful and sustainable world. This can be done because the people of the world recognize that there is no other way to have peace and security in our world community. And the peoples of the world after World War I were full of anguish and grief, and people and their families dead, and the wounded coming home. And the people said, this is such a big war that we have to have a system of making that the war that ends all wars. And so we established of the League of Nations. When the United States failed to join the League of Nations, um, it pretty much became limited, and it was a confederation. And so in the end, it failed in its main purpose, but it succeeded in so many ways. And then after World War II, people of the world looked at mass destruction, millions of people killed, um, and said, this cannot happen again. We refuse to live like this in the future. And so they formed the United Nations. And every time President Roosevelt and Churchill and Stalin met for war strategy, they always had a session for the public about what the peace will look like and how we can build a sustainable peace when this horrible war ends. And that vision for the future was the thing that carried the people through the horrors of the war. And I was there and I remember it all very clearly. And I recognized that for myself, at the end of World War II, after I'd been in the Navy for 3 years, I recognized that for me, my life's work had to be the building of peace. And I've tried to do that in every job I've held and every committee I've been on and every program I've developed and worked through. It's all been for the purpose of the common global good and the building of peace. I think that's probably all the time I have. And I want to have time for questions, and you tell me how much time we have, and you ask the questions, and just bring any of your reflections or thoughts, and we'll carry it from there.
Well, thank you, Dr. McCann. If you could hear our applause, I'm sure you could hear a grand standing ovation for you. Helen, how are we doing on time?
We definitely have a few minutes for questions. So 3 or 4 questions.
Very well. If you have your hand up, want to thumbs up. You definitely went through an amazing perspective hearing.
Carlos, I'm not able to hear you because of the background noise.
Yeah, I'm hearing it.
Yep.
We can't hear you, Carlos. I'm sorry. It fades in and out.
Write his question in the chat.
Maybe if you.
It's better now, Dr. McCann. If you can stay close to the microphone like you are right now, the background is gone. So Carlos, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, are there any questions at this point? You can raise your hand or just unmute yourself.
I have one question.
Yes,
Maybe
please.
2. Is your book Destiny at the library? I pray that it has not been banned.
I'm not sure, but I'll make sure that it's in the library. It may not be in the library. It's in the library at the Jefferson, so you're
How about
welcome.
Barnes and Noble? Can I go to Barnes and Noble?
I don't know. You can certainly go to Amazon, and it's always available there.
Thank you.
It's available all over the world. A group of people were in India in a retreat in the mountains, and 20,000 people from all over the world come in to meditate for peace. And my book was sold there, and was printed in India because Amazon has a printing there for all of Southeast Asia. So uh, it's all over the world, and it's on Amazon, and it's very easy to get that way. But I'm not sure about the bookstore. Incidentally, it's being put on an audiobook, and one more week, I trust, time for Christmas, you'll be able to get it from Amazon on audiobook.
Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie, you have a question?
Thank you, Dr. McCann, for those inspiring remarks. What is the full title of the book? Because I'm having trouble finding it on Amazon.
The title is Destiny.
What was it?
He wanted the full title of the book.
The full title?
Charlie, Michael
The full-
actually posted it in the chat. The link
full-
for the book on Amazon. Thank you, Michael.
Can you see it?
They sent it to them, Bob.
Yeah.
They sent it to them in the chat there, so they'll all have it.
He sent it by email.
He sent the title.
Okay, I'll send the title by email.
No, they've done it. They put it up.
Oh, they've done it and put it up there. Okay. All right.
Dr. McCann, I want to thank you. This is Rachel. I just want to thank you so much for your remarks and just your legacy, the career that you've already done to make this world a better place. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your work with advocating for older adults with Sergeant Shriver and Senator Ted Kennedy?
Yes. In between 1966 and 1967, 2 years, I worked for Sergeant Shriver in the War on Poverty programs in Washington, D.C. The head of employment programs was Earl Williams, who had been a member of my church in Clarksville, Tennessee. When Sergeant Shriver asked him take this really top job, he thought of me immediately and asked me to be his deputy. And so I had finished my work at Harvard and wanted to establish a new college in the Washington, D.C. area, and needed to come and get grounded here so I could start working on it. So it fit perfectly, and I came to work in the War on Poverty. For the first year, I did employment programs with Earl, and we traveled everywhere and did demonstration projects, and I could tell you a lot of interesting stories, but during that first year, there were no programs for older people. And there was a United States senator who was very concerned about the fact that there were no programs for older people. And he headed up the Senate Select Committee on Aging. His name was Ted Kennedy, the brother-in-law of Sergeant Shriver, who headed up the program, his most avid critic. So he held hearings in the Senate on why there were no older persons programs. And I went with Sergeant Shriver to the Senate Select Committee meeting, and he described that he thought we get more bang from the buck by spending our money on youth rather than older people. They were going to go off the scene pretty soon anyway, so why not spend it where we get a long-term benefit? So that was his view, but that was not the view of Kennedy. And he enlisted the support of all the national organizations, National Council on Aging, the National Senior Citizens Organization, and others. And anyway, they all sent messages to Sergeant Shriver. We want a division for older people. He had thrown the request in the garbage can in the wastebasket, and then he got it out after the pressure mounted. And he went back to them and said, I'm willing to give you a division, but not a whole department. Um, so you can have a program for older people. And then instead of making it a separate division, I'm going to put it in the employment programs division. So that's what he did. And he gave Earl the task of finding a director for the program. And with my interest in older people, he very reluctantly gave me up as his deputy and made me the director of the older persons programs. So we did this for a year together, and we started just an amazing array of programs. And I'll just mention three very briefly, which are still very much alive and active, and some of them in Arlington, maybe all of them. The first one was Green Thumb. And Green Thumb was a program for retired farmers who did not have Social Security because they had been self-employed. And so they were very poor, and they knew one thing. They weren't educated. They knew one thing. That was how to make things grow. And so by states, they were organized to work on highway beautification projects, planting flowers in cities and on the highways in the state. And they were admired and appreciated by the people of the state, and did a great public service and were employed in the process and made the basics for a living with the gratitude of the people of the states. So that was one program, and Lady Bird Johnson made that her signature program during the time she was in the White House. Second program was a foster grandparent, and there was the recognition that there were so many children that were not really tied to an adult with meaningful mentoring and loving, caring, like every child needs. And so we knew that the older grandparents many of them spent years being the guardians and caretakers for the children and grandchildren. So we employed the grandparents to give tender, loving care to 2 children each day. There was no other requirement except tender, loving care. And that was a program that flourished, and Nancy Reagan made that her signature program while she was in the White House. So now I'm trying to think of the third one. And I'm having a senior moment here, and it's not coming to me. But at any rate, programs that lasted were the programs that were institutionalized as programs. And they did enormous good. But after 2 years, Earl was burned out. We worked long hours, and Sergeant Shriver was a driver. He kept everybody going at top speed. And so Earl was burned out, and I decided to leave the Office of Economic Opportunity. So I moved over to the U.S. Office of Education. And there I headed up programs for disadvantaged youth and also for integration and preparing teachers across the country to work for the first time in integrated schools, primarily with summer programs where they would come together and work for a summer in preparation for the fall integration. So those were some of the things that I did in that area. I've talked too long on that one, but there you go.
Thank you, Dr. McCann. And I think we have run out of time. I can't thank you, Dr. McCann, enough, and your lovely wife, Peggy, and Cynthia, I see what you got there as well, and Jim, for all the support you provided in making today's session possible. And happy holidays to everyone there at the Jefferson. Take care.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And William and Helen, the floor is all yours again.
All right. So thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you, Dr. McCann. Really appreciate it. Okay. Next is the approval of November meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved. Yes, moved.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Any in opposition? Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. We will move on to the staff reports. Helen?
All right, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Carlos, again for coordinating that conversation with Dr. McCann. He's just really very inspiring, so appreciate you bringing him to the commission this morning. So just a few quick things from me. So first of all, Medicare open enrollment season wrapped up on December the 7th. And from what I've heard, it was busier than usual this year. So big thanks to Charlie and to all of the volunteers, as well as to Michelle and her team. Michelle is still gathering the data, but she is also taking some much deserved time off this week. And so I've asked her to give us a quick report of the highlights at the January meeting, and she's agreed to do that. So more on that to come, but you know, it sounds like a lot of great work was done and a lot of money saved for our constituents. So I can't wait to see those final numbers. Thanks to Audrey, who came with me to Culpeper Garden a couple weeks ago to hear some feedback from the participants in the Shoppers Loop. We had about 10 residents present at the meeting, and most of their feedback was related to the new process and the new routes. I've been in touch with the vendor. I've been back in touch with Culpeper Garden, and I'm just hoping if we give it a little bit more time to settle, they'll be happy with the new service. I also noticed that ridership from Claridge House and Hunters Park was very low the first month. And so I'm watching that closely and may schedule some registration fairs at these properties in the new year. So more to come on that. We're continuing our planning for the next community engagement forum, which is scheduled for Monday, March the 17th. The theme is Safe at Home, and we plan to have a panel who will speak on a few key topics such as home modifications, financial safety, in-home care. Right now, there is nothing firmly planned, so if you've got ideas on what a good topic would be for the panel, please pass that along. We're meeting Thursday at 10 a.m. to brainstorm who some good speakers might be, and so if you're interested, let me know. I'll forward that invite along to you. Okay, so earlier this year, we talked about DARS coming on site for their 3-year monitoring visit. This is something they do every 3 years. We thought that it would be scheduled over the summer, maybe then early fall, and it never got scheduled. Well, now we know when that schedule is going to be. They will be on site beginning February the 10th. And so, you know, they have a pretty large monitoring tool, several pages that they'll run through while they're here. So we'll be busily preparing for their visit starting right after the holidays. Um, and then back in September, when we talked about the area plan budget, Kathy, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question if there's any value or if they've requested having any members of the commission join the meeting. I think some of us would be happy to do so if that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Kathy. Okay. So when we talked about the area plan budget back in September, we talked a little bit about the impact of the COVID funds going away. So based on our projections, the federal and state funding that we receive from Meals on Wheels for home delivered meals is not going to be enough to cover the programs in the coming months. And this is a vital program that supports around 200 homebound older adults. The Meals on Wheels of Arlington team has greatly increased their fundraising and their advocacy efforts at the local, state, and national levels. So please, we would appreciate any support where you can, and we'll share the information as we learn it. And then finally, along the recruitment front in the Agency on Aging, I'm very happy to announce that we've made a selection for our Aging and Disability Resource Center supervisor. Tanae Young, who has been serving as the interim supervisor over the past year, was selected to serve as the official ADRC supervisor, and today is her first day. So congratulations, Tanae. So we continue our recruitment efforts for a Human Services Clinician 2 to backfill Shamika Mason, who was promoted to the Adult Protective Services team lead back in July. And now that Tanae is officially in her new role, we're going to begin the recruitment process to backfill the team lead for the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So always a new position to recruit for, but fingers are crossed, one day we will be fully staffed in the ADRC. So that's all I have. Any questions for me?
All right, seeing none. Rachel.
Right. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all. Happy holidays, and hope everyone, if you're traveling, safe travels, and looking forward to seeing you all in the new year. But just kudos to Helen as well for all the updates. As you've heard, Helen and the Agency on Aging has been very busy this year, and especially to Helen and Tanae for both sort of serving in multiple roles with the recruitment efforts. So congratulations again to Tanae, very exciting news. I just had a few updates. Our Arlington Adult Day program continues to have a pretty extensive waiting list and interest list. It just really conveys the importance of the program. Adult Day is such a support for caregivers, and so there is a kind of interest waiting list. We do have a dedicated caregiver support specialist and who has been in touch with the families on the waiting list. So they're offered programs, supports, and resources. But that is one of the programs that we do have a significant interest for. I've shared this past year, there've been a lot of progress with addressing older adults who are unhoused or experiencing homelessness. We have continued to meet the task force to address older adults experiencing homelessness, and just want to thank some of our community partners who have really been in it with us in trying to come up with creative solutions. We've been working with True Ground Housing, and we have 6 older adults housed in 4 dedicated units for older adults at Unity. And so we have social workers who are continuing to work with them. These are individuals who were homeless, living in the shelter, or had evictions. So we're continuing to work with them. We have a very close partnership with Path Forward, and have just signed an agreement for transitional housing for 3 units for older adults. This is for individuals for whom shelter may not be the most appropriate setting for a multitude of reasons, but again, trying to have a transitional housing before we find more of a permanent housing solution. But the advocacy continues, and the great work that Audrey and Michael have been doing with the housing committee. There just still needs to be just a lack of affordable housing, and then the need for affordable assisted living is something that we see for our older adults as well. And for older adults who have experienced chronic homelessness, they may appear older than their chronological age. So really just trying to provide wraparound services to those individuals, and really just it's a community partnership and effort to address some of those needs. Our benefit enrollment center is continuing to be very successful. Again, I want to thank Tanae and then Michelle Thomas for their leadership. We are on track to not just meet but exceed our target. And so we have a number of different outreach events scheduled for the new year. But if you are interested in joining us, either as an ongoing volunteer or just for an upcoming outreach event, please do let me or Tanae know, and we'd be happy to kind of train you, get you involved. And even if you just want to join us for an outreach session and don't want to commit, you're welcome to do that as well. And then I think Helen sent us in the information that went out in advance of the meeting, but we'll send it out again. The county has requested feedback on the budget for FY 2026. And so this really is a great opportunity to identify the various priorities that have been laid out in the age-friendly plan, from the speakers that you've heard throughout this year, but things that really are important to older adults, and making sure that we are an age-friendly community for people of all ages and stages. So we'll put the link in the chat, and then send that as a follow-up as well. And then I know Maimuna had to step away for another meeting. I don't believe she has any other updates, but I don't know, Jim, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Not at this time, but I just wanted to add wonderful speaker today. Absolutely knocked it out of the park with lining it up. So thank you again, Carlos, for helping facilitate that, and all the members of the COA. Really appreciate hearing those stories. And give your public feedback to the budget, please. We urge all of you to do that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. And thanks for reminding us Maimuna had another meeting. So thank you all for sending your committee reports, and also the updates at the executive committee. And thank you for all the collaboration that you're doing with other entities, for your outreach, for your advocacy. And please keep doing that. As Dr. McCann noted, a small group of each of us has the power within us. We don't need anything else, as J.K. Rowling said. You as a person, if you have ideals, goals, you have everything that you need to be able to help make that change. And you have all your colleagues here and in and outside of the commission. And so thank you for your commitment to making Arlington a better place for everyone, not only older adults. Okay, we are going to move to the committee and work group updates, and looks like we have transportation at the top. So Catalina, I know you've been doing a lot of work with the Transportation Task Force in Arlington. I had the pleasure of joining them this past month. A lot of things going on about the future of transportation in Arlington. Looks like we have a lot of other commissions and boards who share our interest in making sure transit is on time and safe, and also sidewalks are repaired, and bikers and walkers are safe. So do you want to give us an update on transportation, Catalina?
Yeah, so thanks again, Will, for joining that. In my absence, I had a work conflict, so I'm catching up on the meeting recording from the Wednesday advisory group meeting for Arlington's transportation future, which is what Will was just alluding to. So there is some follow-up homework from that, similar to last time. I'll try to coordinate that effort, via email. Basically, we want to align on a set of, I think it was 4 to 6 sort of short phrases or words that are indicative of like what we see the goals for Arlington's transportation future being. And so I'll collect some of that feedback, offline, and then at our next transportation committee meeting, which is in January 10th, we'll kind of review what folks said again before I compile that for the next advisory group meeting, which is on January 16th, I believe. So stay tuned for more on that. And then wanted to circle back on something I mentioned last month. I went to the Aging Connecticut Summit, which is the event where all the different area agencies on aging in Connecticut get together and just share resources and like have different speakers and panels. And there were some good resources I saw there. They had different presentations on housing, transportation, like loneliness, things like that. So I can put a link because they actually made all the presentations available online. And while a lot of it is obviously, Connecticut specific in terms of local resources, there are still, I think, good ideas and things that might be interesting for you to look at since we work on, similar things over here. And in particular, when you go to that link, and I can send it to Helen so she can share it in the post meeting email as well. But there's a section that's like housing too, and it talks a lot about different assistive technology, like applications in the home. And I thought that was really interesting. It was, more than I had considered before. And, with the holidays, selfishly, it gave me some good ideas for like different things that might be helpful to have in the home for, my loved ones. So that might be something to look at if you have time. But I thought it was a really great event. They even had like a session where people were tabling, and there was a group of recent grads from Yale that started this company called Upkeep Care, and they're working with the state on this like AI chatbot for their 211 service in Connecticut, which is, the free confidential information and referral service connecting folks to health and human services like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the phone. But they were working through like what it would look like to make the AI chatbot, very sort of accessible. So can you like speak to it instead of typing to it? Can you hear the results of the search back to you? So there's just a lot of interesting stuff going on across the board, and I'll continue to try to share out things from that I learned. But Helen, it made me think about like what like events like that are happening in Virginia, if at all. And I did some Googling, and I saw at first glance there's like a Leading Age Virginia annual conference that happens. I think it said it's in June 2025, which seems kind of similar, where it's, different area agencies on aging might get together, and or folks in like the aging field might come together. But was curious, like locally, like Falls Church, Alexandria, Arlington, if we ever have like moments where we connect with other folks, on commissions on aging or anything like that.
So there's a couple things. So the agencies on aging themselves get together. The directors at the Virginia Association of Area Agencies on Aging. So all of the directors get together about 4 times a year. But upcoming in May of 2025 is the Virginia Governor's Conference on Aging. And so that sounds very similar to what you're talking about with the Aging Connecticut Summit. The Governor's Conference on Aging is something that happens every 2 years, and it will be in Williamsburg this year. And so as information about that comes out, and registration information specifically, I'll be sure to forward that along. It's May 19th and 20th, I believe, are the dates for this year. And then I had another thought, but it's gone. So yeah, but I would say that's probably the closest to what you're talking about with the Aging Connecticut Summit, would be that Virginia Governor's Conference on Aging.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Catalina, thank you, Helen. Catalina, anything else?
Hi, this is
That's
Claire.
it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hello.
Yes, did someone have a question?
Yes, I do. This is Claire. I'm on the phone.
Yes, Claire, go ahead.
This is to Catalina. It's again my appeal. I made an appeal a while back regarding a program which is the Super Saver Senior Taxi Program. I may not have the words in the right order, and I appealed for a lower rate. but I also am continuing to appeal or reappeal for Catalina and her group. I'm not on the transportation committee, to try to get the number of books. Currently, those who have applied for that program are only allowed to buy 20 books for the fiscal year, which runs 1 July to 30 June. 20 books, that's just not enough for those seniors who use taxi and those seniors who are on a limited or even a moderate income. I'm urging, I'm appealing for an increase in those books, to increase from 20 books a year to 36 books a year. Even 36 books, that's only 3 books a month. And taxi fares have gone up, and believe me, a $20 book worth of coupons can be just about used up for a run and from south to north Arlington or whatever. So I really am appealing for an increase in the number of books from 20 to 36 for those seniors in Arlington with limited income or even moderate income. Thank you.
So Claire, we would love to work with you on that. Could you join us either at the next Transportation Committee meeting or before, so that we can collaborate with you, reach out to seniors who are older adults who are impacted, and move this forward. So thank you very much for bringing that.
Okay, I'll send my email to Catalina. I'm on the Long-Term Care Residences Committee, Housing and Legislative Committee, but I am not on the Transportation Committee, but I'm certainly willing to attend the next Transportation Committee and continue my appeal for the increase in the number of books. Thank you, William. Thank you. And thank you, Catalina.
Super. Thank you. All right. Next is Carlos.
Hello, everybody. Happy holidays. So we've been busy with some of our efforts, not only in terms of supporting the ambassador program, which is ongoing, and Roland has been participating and will participate in future meetings that happen every month. The Arlington Community Foundation is continuing to gather information through a survey that has been shared with individuals to capture information about the needs of older LGBTQ individuals in our county. So that's ongoing, and hopefully we'll have a report about the next steps after that report data is analyzed and submitted to everyone, and I'll make sure that you all get a copy of that report. We also had a chance to participate in an effort to try to secure some dollars for that intergenerational book club that I had proposed as an idea. So it went from a concept idea to now a proposal that was submitted, and hoping that it'll get funded. But at the same time, there are other avenues that we're pursuing to make that a reality. And then we'll be having a meeting soon, and we are asking for our friends from not only the police department, but the sheriff's department and the fire department to talk about what it means to use the right resources for older adults when it comes to an emergency versus over relying on the 911 number. And that's my report for this month.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Really appreciate your inviting Dr. McCann. Very courageous individual, and motivated us all that we can do better. All right, health and wellness. Kate Kasha.
Hi, this is Kate. I'll go ahead and speak for our committee update. The group met on December 6th, just a couple of Fridays ago. And the focus of our conversation was really on 2 topics. The first one, which probably took up most of the time, was around Title III-D programs. Those are the health promotion, disease prevention programs supported through the Older Americans Act. So Kathy did a really nice job providing us with an overview and talking in particular about the NCOA Center for Healthy Aging and how they support area agencies as well as other organizations across the country to do not only these programs, but other support services. And she really helped us kind of understand that there is a very thorough, extensive, and and helpful database that NCOA maintains. And it's all of the evidence-based programs related to the disease prevention and behavioral health programs under Title III. So that led into a nice discussion. She gave some examples of the types of programs that may be of interest to some of the goals in our plan, in our health and wellness plan. And so we talked about some examples there. And then more specifically, Helen and Rachel were able to kind of give us a little bit more context in terms of locally what might be needed, where, specific communities in Arlington we might consider for where these plans might be most, or these programs might be most beneficial. Not that our committee would necessarily do them, but be part of, facilitating that communication and that awareness. So that was really good. And we have some follow-up steps coming out of that discussion. And then we did touch on a bit at the end of the meeting on kind of our continuation around the dental care issues and how we can best kind of get those resources to older adults, specifically those who are low income, lacking resources. So it was a good discussion, went a solid hour or so, and appreciate everyone's contribution. So our next meeting in person will be, March 14th. So all are welcome to that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kate. I forgot to ask people whether anyone had questions for each of the committee chairs. Does anyone have questions for health and wellness? Or transportation or aging equity? And before I forget, thank you for the smooth transition. So Kate and Kasia, and I know Linda is there, so I can see her. I want to thank Linda very much for everything that she has done for the Commission on Aging, for health and wellness, and also at Culpeper Garden, of course. And so as you, and I know the county board has recognized your contributions, and we look forward to your continuing to, be with us, join us, and it's great to see you here today. So thank you, Linda. Anything that you care to say to our group?
You're very sweet. No, thank you. It's always been a pleasure, and I will stay involved in health and wellness and hopefully long-term care.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Great. Next, Audrey in housing.
I have put some notes in the board book. We met last month with Caitlin Jones about the home ownership study. It affects a relatively small number of the older adults who have affordability issues, but it's a big deal for safety and keeping them in their homes. So we touched on a number of things. What came up obviously was real estate tax relief, which is our hot button. So we're trying to figure out if there's any way to light a fire under that issue, but it looks like that's going to be, the review of it is going to be postponed for a few years. Next year, we're shifting to an every second month meeting schedule. We're going to try to have a speaker at each meeting. And part of the problem with housing is that it moves at a glacial pace. It can take 3 to 5 years or more for a building that's planned to be executed. And so trying to get 1 or 2 or 3 affordable units into an apartment building is just a drop in the bucket. So we're talking to other counties. We're going to look at how Falls Church and Alexandria have managed more affordable housing units, and keeping track of Melwood and the Clarendon Presbyterian developments, and hoping to do anything we can to keep them moving forward. So our first meeting of the year is the second Tuesday in January.
All right, thank you, Audrey. Do we have any questions or comments for Audrey? All right, great, thank you so much. Next, legislative, Anthony.
Hey, William. Morning, everyone. No, we have no updates since our last meeting. Our next meeting is coming up first Monday in January. So nothing new since the last commission meeting to update on. Thanks.
Okay. Super. Thank you so much for your work. Charlie, and long-term care residences.
Thank you. The committee just met this past Thursday. Written report in the materials. The turnaround time tends to come too quickly. But we met at Mary Marshall Assisted Living Facility and had a wonderful presentation from their executive director, Davina Alston, who I would actually recommend to speak to the full Commission on Aging sometime. She has a great slide presentation, and it's a unique program of 52 beds facility for persons over age 55 with developmental disabilities or mental health issues. So we really enjoyed that, and we have in those meetings we have regular updates from public health, who is reporting an increase in stomach flu and neuroviruses, which they're really focusing on right now. We had updates from Robin Cooper on memory cafe developments, from Carl Varner, the ombudsman, on the kind of complaints that they're seeing, and also Mary Marshall has a very active community advisory council that Erica Wood and Ann Herman are involved in. Erica might have more to say than I do on this, but as I think you've all heard, we've gotten off the ground a community advisory council at Cherrydale. There is also a fairly new one at the Carlin, another adult facility, and we're really kind of there are not many examples of community advisory councils around the country, and we're kind of starting to think about how do we define what success is, how can we measure it, can we develop a model that we could then publish and expand upon. So that's kind of down the road, but something we would love to see. So that's it.
Do we have any questions for Charlie? Charlie, yeah, thanks for doing that. Thanks for meeting out
I think Audrey has a question.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Audrey. Go ahead.
It's okay. I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that there is a advisory council for the Carlin that is going very well. And I don't know, and we should think about how to measure success, but it's very supportive of their internal team. And we've managed to get information and help them with evictions, and the county's involved in the finances for people who have been delinquent, trying to figure out how to get them stable so they don't face eviction. And there's been a really good relationship. So
that's great. Yeah. So yes, thank you both for your participation and contributions. There's a little bit of an echo. Maybe it's from me. I don't know. But yeah. And also for your innovation. So from your remarks, Charlie, sounds like this is something new that we're doing. So we're, kind of breaking new ground and new territory. So thanks for doing that as well. Okay. Do we have any liaison updates? Helen, are you seeing anything on your side?
No, I know Wendy had to drop off, and Jennifer wasn't able to join us today, so.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate everything they're doing as well. All right. So any old business that we need to address? Any new business? Seeing none. Helen made us aware of the May AAA, and my question was going to be, can the general public or all the members attend, or only certain individuals? But sounds like it's open to everybody.
Yeah, the Virginia Governors Conference is open to anybody who wants to register. So I'll send information along as I get it.
All right. Ballpark, is it what, a couple $100 and then hotel and transportation?
Yes. Let me find that out.
Okay.
I do know that it's going to be at the Williamsburg Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. Great. It only happens every other year, so it sounds like it's a valuable event, and way to network with your colleagues. So, and you all are doing so much cutting edge things. So it sounds like a great opportunity. Well, great. Thank you all so much. Have a great holiday. I think Dr. McCann gave us a lot to think about and try to do things better. Our next meeting is Monday, January 27, and wish you all a great holiday, and thanks so much. Talk to you later. Bye now.
Thanks, William. Happy holidays.
Happy
You too.
holidays, everyone.
Bye.
Holidays. Bye.